I'm a trailblazer. I feel like Ron Strickland. Matter of fact, let's take it back to the New York Knicks. Hometown kid, guard the point. Watch me rip it, and then dish it a league-leading behemoth whenever I would pass. And watch me leave the same mark with this podcast. Strictly speaking, you can't mess with me. Strictly speaking, I'm the best you see. Yeah. Strictly speaking, yeah. Yeah. Strictly speaking, yeah. Strictly speaking, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are Strictly Speaking. I am your co-host, Ali Danbois. My man with the master plan, his name is Rod Strickland. Ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about supreme point guard and floor general play, gotta throw my man Rod Strickland's name into the mix. With the hypnotic ability to handle the ball that was reminiscent of Bruce Lee's nunchuck mastery, Strick earned his spot amongst the game's untouchables. We do this every week. It's called Strictly Speaking, where we talk about what we want to talk about. Hey, yo, Rod.
What's up, Ali? How you doing, man?
I'm fantastic, man. I'm excited about today's show, brother.
Man, I'm excited too, man. I get to talk to a former teammate, NBA great, a legend, and Chris Webber. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
No doubt about it. Chris Webber is our guest on today's episode of Strictly Speaking. And Rod, when I look back, man, I look back at one of my favorite teams in the NBA. I look at that 1996, 1997 Washington Bullets. Y'all was still the Bullets back then.
Yes,
squad. And I just remember you and CWebb and Juwan and a young Ben Wallace, man. You played with CWebb when he was a very young guy, just kind of getting his bearings in the league. I think maybe he was 23 at the time when you guys played together, man. When he kind of got on the court and you played with him, man, what were some of those things that you recall from playing with C-Webb?
Well, first, I just remember, and I got to tell the story of how I got there, because basically I kind of was going through a contract dispute. Well, I didn't say a dispute, but I was trying to get a contract from the Portland Trail Blazers, and an extension or whatever you want to call it. So we had been having conversation, and it hadn't been going too well. And so, you heard rumors about possibly me being traded or what have you. And I'll never forget, actually, I was at a wake. A close friend of mine's son had died. And I'll never forget being at the wake, being around all the friends and family, and little kids ran into the room where I was at and was like, "Oh, you got traded. Like it's on ESPN. I'm like, huh, what? It's like, you got traded. And so we all ran to the TV, and there you go. I was traded to the Washington Wizards from Portland. No one called me or anything. I was traded. So just fast forward, well, not fast forward, but I always looked at the Wizards, and they were always kind of I'm saying the Wizards, the Bullets at the time. They were always the kind of team that I always looked at them like, wow, I would love to play with CWebb, Juwan Howard, Calvert Chaney, and those guys at the time. They had Robert Pack. So, fast forward, I'm traded, but I'm a little upset because I didn't get my contract. I don't know what the Bullets are going to do. So at first I'm thinking about, oh man, I might not even report. I'm going through all of that. And then fast forward, have the press conference. They officially, announced me as a Bullet. C-Webb is there. Juwan Howard is there. So I was excited, man. I was looking forward to playing with all those guys. And, C-Webber was C-Webber. He was the superstar without a doubt of the team. Juwan Howard also was one of the stars. He had a great year. He just got a big contract. But C-Webb was the guy. And so I was looking forward to playing with those guys. And once I got there, got to practice, young, energetic, swag, cocky, competitive, they were all that. C-Webb was, he was the guy. He was kind of the guy who made everything go.
No doubt about it, man. What impressed you most about his skill set? Because, obviously he was big and strong and fast and athletic, but he was a stone cold baller, man. Averaged a double double. The cat hit about close to 40% of his 3-point attempts. Shot blocker, rebounder, exceptional interior passer. I mean, you had to be excited coming to play with a guy like that.
No, absolutely. I mean, CWebb was 20 points, double-figure rebound, going to give you, like you said, 4 or 5 assists, going to give you a steal and a half to 2 steals, going to give you a block and a half to 2 blocks. I was a point guard, so I ran a lot of ball screens, pick and rolls, and to have CWebb as that pick and roll guy, I mean, for me, I led the league playing in assists playing with Chris Webber. Because once I came off that screen, you had to make a decision. And CWebb has probably the greatest hands that I've been around. So you throw that ball anywhere in the vicinity, and he's grabbing it and he's putting it in. But he was just, he did a little bit of everything, man. He could start the break. He could finish the break. You could play him in the high post. You could play off of him. He can ISO from the high post, or he can hit you on cuts. Obviously he was capable of posting up, mid-post, and then he would step out and shoot threes. But he was he was that energetic life of the team. He was that competitor. And I got to play with some young guys with him and Jawan who had that mojo and was always ready to compete.
His name is Rod Strickland. I'm Ali Danwar. You're listening to Strictly Speaking, the biggest, the baddest, the boldest, the coldest basketball podcast on the interwebs. 2 years before you get to the Bullets, Rod, they're 21-61. The next year, I believe CWebb had some injury issues. The team got better, 39-43. But when you get into the mix, man, you guys go over 500. 44-38, and you go up against the Chicago Bulls, one of the greatest teams ever in the history of the NBA. And I know you lost to those guys 3-0, but that series, to me, was still an excellent series, and I still look back on those Bullets teams very fondly. Just take me through that season and the excitement of being able to turn the Bullets around to a team that was competitive and going up against Jordan and putting in some work.
Yeah, well, I got to backtrack a little bit because the season started kind of shaky. I remember Jimmy Lynam was the head coach, and it was a transition for me because I was playing with 2 guys in Chris Webb and Jawan Howard who loved to handle the ball. Like I said, they could finish or start the break. So a lot of times they would get the rebound and go. But I was a point guard, and I was used to having the ball in my hands. So when I first got there was a transition, and we struggled, and I struggled for probably the first, 5 to 10 games, kind of just figuring my way out. And then at one point of the season, they let Jimmy Lynam go, and they brought in Bernie Bickerstaff. And I remember the first day Bernie Bickerstaff got there, and he told the guys, he said, basically, I want Rod with the ball. I want him starting the break, finish, and he'll make plays for you guys. And after we made that transition, everything kind of flowed. I was more comfortable. Those guys got more comfortable with me because I was unselfish enough that I was going to make sure everybody was good. And so we had a really good season. And then I remember at the end of the season, it's coming down to playoff time. And it's getting close, and it's between us and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And they had Terrell Brandon at the time. So we get to the end of the season, and we're playing against the Orlando Magic. Can't think of the coach name right now. But we playing that game, and it's like 2 or 3 games left in the season. It's nip and tuck. One of us can make it, one of us not. So we play Orlando, who I think just played Cleveland. And when they played Cleveland, they sat all their players, and to me, basically let Cleveland win. And I think Mike Fratello was friends with the other coach or what have you. So then we play Orlando, and they're keeping all their players in. So we having a tough game against them. And I remember telling the coach, I can't tell you the exact words, but I had some words for him, and I told him that was BS for what he was doing. So whatever, I think we won the game anyway. So now we have a 1-game playoff against Cavaliers. and it was nip and tuck, all the way to the end. We pulled it out. We celebrated that game like we won the championship. We was in the locker room. Everybody was excited because we made the playoffs. So down we go, and now it's the Bulls. And it was a great series. For us, we were young and up and coming. And the Bulls actually, obviously was the dominant team, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. And I think we played them tough. We played hard. We competed. Jawan and CWebb, like I said, they were those guys that, they always look for a challenge no matter who we played against. So it was great playing with those guys. We go to Chicago. We played them tough, played them well, but we lose both games. Then we come back to D.C., and we play them tough down to the end, and we lose that game. But
yeah, game 3, y'all only lost by 1 point. Game 2 was close, like you said. They won by 5, and game 1, they won by 8. So y'all, I remember the competitiveness of what y'all did against that team that was one of the historically great teams ever.
Yes. No, definitely. And go into the last game, because I did an interview with the Wizards this year. I was on the road, and they're kind of doing something on that year and on that series. And I guess they may do it like around playoff time. I remember them showing me a video of the last shot. I had the ball in my hands in Washington that last game. And I'll never forget, I don't know how many seconds was left. I had the ball. I drove. I had Randy Brown on me, too. And I kicked it to Calvert Chaney, and he missed a shot. And I've always said to this day, if I had to do that over with, I probably would have took that shot. But I was explaining it to who I was explaining to, and I was telling them, I've always been kind of like just a hooper. I've never been the guy that felt like I had to take the last shot. I always felt like I had to make the last play. You know what I mean? So there were times where I would get in there and I would kick it, or dish it off to somebody for a play. And then there was times where, all right, I'm going to take it. And that particular time I dished it, but I look back at it and I say that was one of those moments where I said I would have took that shot.
That's my man Rod Strickland, game 3 against the Washington Bullets. My man had 24 points, 9 assists, 50% from the field. Did the thing, man. Yo, I'm excited, man. We're going to bring Chris Webber in on the other side of the break. So y'all stick and stay. Don't go away. On the other side, we got a special treat. Back in a flash.
Strictly speaking, yeah.
Gangster, tell me how you do it.
Yo, I do it with no doubt, know it's gonna work out. Talk on the phone, but only if it's worked out. Been with many, but it's never been turned out. Thinking he must be sure out. Down to sacrifice and pay the price. Since I've been young, I've been nice on the dice. The inner city star hanging in your car. Mr. Quick, the mic rip off the ball.
Just the other day, I was dipping down Lindbergh with a Mossberg pulled to the curb and swerve. Trying to make $1 out of 15 cents. Trying to keep my rent paid. Rolling with a switch. Tried to get married, about to get that paid, man. Smoking, rolling, gang control, man. I got to keep all of mine, it's like heaters. Stay warm all the time. Hit my people over the flow, that be marvelous. Gangsta, tell me how you do.
And we're back. You are listening to Strictly Speaking. I am your co-host, Ali Danwar, the man with the master plan. His name is Rod Strickland. Rod is crazy straight. He's still spending money from 1988. And as we told you in the open, we've got a spectacular guest on deck with us today. Hey, Rod, you ready to bring him in, right?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Let's make it happen. We are honored and privileged to have as our guest today on Strictly Speaking, Mr. Mace Edward Christopher Webber III, a.k.a. CWebb, a.k.a. the inimitable Chris Webber, one of the best and most devastating ballers ever in the history of high school ball, college, and the NBA. He was the National Prep Player of the Year coming out of Detroit Country Day, which he led to 3 Michigan State high school championships. As a freshman and sophomore at the University of Michigan, he led the Wolverines to back-to-back appearances in the 1992 and 1993